It's 6 p.m. and I think we'll get started. I just want to say that it's my pleasure to welcome you to San Mateo County Library's virtual Bookfest featuring local voices in contemporary American poetry. My name is Nicole Cuadra. I'm a librarian with San Mateo County Libraries. Tonight's event is hosted by San Mateo County Poet Laureate Emerita Caroline Goodwin. Caroline moved from Sitka, Alaska to the San Francisco Bay Area in 1999 to attend Stanford as a Wallace Stegner Fellow in Poetry. Her books are Trapline, Peregrine, and The Paper Tree. She holds an MFA from the University of British Columbia and teaches at
I can't hear anything.
College of the Arts, UC Berkeley Extension,
I don't know.
and Stanford
Oh,
Continuing
maybe I
Studies.
have the mic in here.
Please welcome Caroline Goodwin.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much. So thank you all so much for being here. These Zoom events and figuring out how to be together even though we're apart is really important, and it has been a bright spot for me in my creative life. And it's really lovely to see people here that I know from different poetry events around the Bay Area. And we'll just, do the best we can here, as we always do in these situations. I know people are probably feeling a lot of sadness right now, and probably some anxiety and fear. But we do the best we can in the poetry world, and especially with our libraries and living in this beautiful place of San Mateo County. Yeah, so I'm grateful to be here. And I did tell one of our authors, Ron, that he is out working in an emergency room on the front lines. And he asked to go to read first tonight because of his schedule. So we kind of worked it out. He doesn't have Zoom. He's gonna run out of the emergency room wherever he is and call me on my phone and FaceTime me, and I'll hold the phone up to the screen so that we can hear him read his poem. But while we wait, he will be here pretty soon. He did send me a poem to read to kind of fill a little bit of the time here at the beginning, which I'm gonna find now. Thank you for hanging in there with me. So this is a poem. Well, first of all, I'll read Ron's bio, let you know a little bit about him. Ron Riekki is an award-winning screenwriter, actor, and poet. And sorry, one more tiny little thing I gotta do. Okay, there we go. Make sure all right, here we go. He edited the anthologies The Way North, Here, and Here, and co-edited the anthologies Undocumented and The Many Lives of the Evil Dead. His Ghost Road Press novel, UP, was nominated by the National Book Award winner John Casey for the Sewanee Writers Series. His plays have been performed around the country, and he was selected as a Tennessee Williams Scholar, where he studied with Arlene Hutton and a Pulitzer Prize winner, Lee Blessing. His most recent works include My Ancestors Are Reindeer Hunters and I Am Melting in Extinction, Semi-American Nonfiction, Fiction, and Poetry from Apprentice House Press, 2019. The Many Lives of the Evil Dead, Essays on the Cult Film Franchise, McFarland, 2019. And recently, in what we're celebrating tonight, I believe, I have been warned not to write about this, from Main Street Rag Publishing this year in 2020. So while we wait for him to appear, which I'm sure he will, because right before this event started, I was able to figure it out and FaceTime with him, so we'll wait for him to call in. I am going to read a poem that he co-wrote with Sally Brunk. And Ron says that they're in a book that they co-wrote called Niji. Sally Brunk and Ron Riekki, Niji, a collection of poetry. It's available on Barnes and Noble. So this is a poem called, by Sally Brunk, called In Celebration of Women. Yay, apropos for the moment. Linda Hogan writes, this land is the house we have always lived in. The women, their bones, are holding up the earth. And this is the poem. It is my mother sitting by her lamplight, hiding her pain from her children, doing the daily routine as she has done for years. She has fed children, cooked fast meals, held her mother's hand as she passed away. She held her husband's hand and without fear gave him a last kiss and I love you. This woman who gave me her knowledge, her heart, has taught me to always be proud of being Anishinaabe. Her bones hold up this earth. It is my aunties living and ones who have walked on that have brought up families with tradition, language, and songs. It is O Gitch Edakwe, women warriors that cried tears as another child entered the sacred circle to dance for the first time as another child started the walk on the red road. Their bones hold up this earth. It is the Dine woman, the elder in Old Town on the streets of Albuquerque, who sat and talked with me, shared her knowledge as she sat on her Pendleton blanket spread with her handmade jewelry. She gave me a deal on a beautiful turquoise necklace because she said I looked like her granddaughter, a compliment in itself. Their bones hold up this earth. It is these elders who share their knowledge, who are looking to the young ones to offer the sema and ask the questions. They will tell the answers. It is their bones that hold up this earth. It is my fellow sisters of color. These women keep the bond of family and community, strive for a better world and a better environment to bring up our children. These women teach color is not an issue. Color does not define a person. Color is not a ruler on which one should be measured. These women possess such strong, fiery spirits. Their bones hold up this earth too. It is every woman who puts pen to paper, who writes down our stories and helps people to understand. Women who tell the stories weaved down through generations. It is every woman who stands behind a cause, who stands against injustice or discrimination. It is every woman who chooses the road to education. It is every woman who decides to bring children into this world. It is every woman who decides to adopt and foster children. I am thankful to all of my sisters who day after day, month after month, year after year, continue to hold up this earth, who sacrifice their bones, their strength for the many. On this day, be proud of yourself. I say simply, Chi Megwech, Ogechi Dakwe, warrior women. And please forgive me for my mispronunciations, which I'm sure I committed. So thank you for listening, and it's almost time for Ron. Let me see. I hope he calls soon. Actually, why don't we go ahead and move to Kim? If you would, Kim, would you be ready to go ahead and read? This is
anytime you like, babe.
okay. Thank you, Kim. So now it's 6:09. I thought I could fill like 10 minutes at the beginning, like waiting for Ron to come along, and I'm almost there. I'm just a little anxious he's going to pop in right when you start, Kim. So kind of maybe we'll just give it a little minute and get Ron in here. Hold up, have him on. He's going to be right on my phone, and then we'll move on and have Kim read. I wouldn't want to have that happen. So it is time for the FaceTime to arrive. And yeah, unfortunately, I'm sad to report that Jacki, one of our readers for tonight, the author of Seven Skirts, which is really a wonderful book. I'm so happy to be celebrating Seven Skirts. I've known those poems for a while myself, and I'll just read her bio. She is not going to be able to be with us. She had to evacuate at the last minute. I guess there's a brush fire in Belmont. Also, the wonderful Tanuja Wakefield, whose book is Undersong, is not able to be with us. They're okay. The wonderful women poets are okay. They're fine, but and they wish us well, but they're not going to be able to read their poems. So Jacki Rigoni writes within the found spaces of single parenting her 3 children in the San Francisco Bay Area, where she serves as Poet Laureate of Belmont, California. She has an MA in English from UC Berkeley and is a credentialed teacher. A finalist for the 2018 Francine Ringgold Award for New Writers. Her poems appear or are forthcoming in Nimrod International Journal. I love that journal. Moon City Review and Poems for All. An educator and award-winning copywriter by profession, Jacki's other writing can be found on TV and the back of snack packaging. So keep an eye out for Jacki's language on the back of snack packaging. But I'm sorry she can't be with us. That book is really cool project. All right, so Ron will pop in, but actually I've made an executive decision and we're gonna hear from the wonderful, oh, never mind. Here we go, ready? Ron, we're here. He's walking. It's all good. This is how we work things out in the poetry world and support each other and celebrate one another's accomplishments. Can you see him yet?
Oh my God. Okay, sorry.
There he is. Rock and roll.
Thank you. Oh my God. I'll be just gonna read one poem and go fast, and then hopefully everybody can hear me. One quick side note before I read the poem. We really need N95s. So if anybody has N95s, I'll drive anywhere in California. If you have some, we desperately need them. So if anybody happens to have even one, I would drive quite a while to get just one. That's my end of that pleading. And here's my poem. Thank you, Karen Fried and Sally Brunk's poem. And this is from the book that I just had on Main Street Reg that just is coming up now called, I have been warned not to write about this. It's called Confessions X or Confessions 10. This was published in Jute. Here we go, a little out of breath. I worked in a prison psych ward. How the hell do I explain that to you? It was in Florida. There were guys who would rip their stomachs open. You could see their colons. You could see their intestines. They'd look at me and smile. I'd go to the hospital. I used to walk 10 miles to Marquette as a kid. Then I'd walk 10 miles back. There wasn't anything else to do. On the way to a baseball game, a group of kids beat me until my shoulder blade was disconnected. They stopped when they saw that. I remember walking away and one of the kids followed me, staring at me like I was an art piece, as if he had made something beautiful. He said something to me and I just said, yeah. And I kept walking in the direction where I thought the clinic was. I could tell my shoulder was at a 45-degree angle. I looked like a monster. The blood was everywhere. The glove was in my good hand. I remember walking and I felt empty and proud. This is true. I actually remember thinking, you're not going to kill me. No one can ever kill me. And the sun was like a railroad on fire. That's it. I have to go again, guys. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. The jazz hands. So one of the things I've learned, so thanks you guys for working that out. We did it. And one of the things I've learned is that, you know, it can be a little strange and we're getting used to it reading when you can't hear people's reactions and people can't clap. But one of the things that people have been doing is just kind of going like this or using a little reaction button down at the bottom to applaud. So please feel free to do that as the evening unfolds, and thank you. So now, without further ado, Kim Shuck is the 7th Poet Laureate of San Francisco. She belongs to the Northern California Cherokee diaspora and has taught American Indian Studies at San Francisco State University. In 2019, Kim was awarded an inaugural National Laureate Fellowship from the Academy of American Poets, a Penn Oakland Censorship Award, the NCIBA Golden Poppy Award for her book, Deer Trails, San Francisco Poet Laureate Series #7. I know you're gonna love hearing her work. A wonderful local treasure, Kim Shuck.
Thanks. Those introductions are always difficult for me. It's just like, yeah, okay, degrees, awards, whatever. Here's the poetry. I'm sorry that I'm a black square right now. Essentially, I have a cold that's making me very drippy. Through city lights, and they're selling those, which I'm sure they'd like me to mention. Coming down into Eureka Valley, this hillside remembers being wild, and the trees still talk about the orchard that replaced purple bunch and rattlesnake grass. The arroyo, salamanders coil under ceramic pots and sing songs about wet years under the bay laurel, and the yerba buena explain the fog and how the hillsides came to be. White roses grew from a rootstock after the grafts failed, and the bearded iris bolted. Every 10 years or so, saffron crocus bloom under the Maribel plums. So the family still lives in a house that my grandparents rebuilt. 5 generations of the family have lived there. And it's in a part of San Francisco that used to be orchards, so we have fruit trees. This one's called Abalone. The Lady of Rain combs her hair on the East Bay hills. Calm for the moment, Abalone arranged small, precious chunks of windshield glass, a spell, strung as a necklace. Tomorrow she may tell us a story. We'll wait. Sorry. This one's called Watershed. Village sites still sing, resonate through hidden shell mounds from every watershed that wrap the hills on thick-aired nights like these. Songs throb through the sidewalks, through the bark of bay trees and the ache of full bloom and every angled slab of rock peering through the hillsides around Rocky Point and Glen Park Canyon. Remember their true names and call them out like birds do, announcing boundaries. Unseen but heard if listened for, there's still joy in these hillsides. The water still runs here. This one's called Celebration. And I think I wrote this when I was observing from a hillside that San Francisco is looking very like an above ground cemetery these days, with all the houses painted gray. And I understand fashion trends, but good God, y'all. We don't really have to do that, do we? Arts of destruction. They've built new temples on the footprints of the old, the water systems they didn't understand from the stones of grander buildings until they crumbled themselves or wandered off to pillage something else. In this light, the swings at the playground in the park, the playhouses at the zoo, the old pool by the beach. I can see them all, can taste waffle dogs, the hot beach sand in the 60s. On days like these, I pull my quilt of sidewalk squares around me. So I grew up here
Uh-oh, Kim, I think you maybe cut out. Can't hear you suddenly. Uh-oh, what do we do now? Uh-oh, maybe she got kicked off. You know, sometimes that happens. You'll be teaching a class and all of a sudden you go back to that little tiny square and it's circling and saying connecting, connecting. It's kind of like, that's unfortunate. Let's give her a couple minutes to pop back in and see if that works. There's a lot of people here for a poetry event. Thank you all so much for helping us celebrate. It's always so exciting when a book comes out. In the chat box, you can see places where you can order these books that we'll be hearing from and celebrating tonight. Links to the different book venues. Shoot, I don't know what to do. I can, you know what we can do is we can move on to, I can just start, I can read the next person's bio. And if Kim comes back, we can go back to her. Maybe she'll come back later. I know that she wasn't feeling great. So let me read the bio of Johanna Ely. Oh, Johanna, can you help me with pronunciation? I'm sorry. Can you unmute yourself? And
It's Johanna Ely.
Johanna Ely. I knew that was. I knew it was wrong. Thank you, Johanna Ely. So Johanna is with us as the 6th Poet Laureate of Benicia, California. She started in 2016, through 2018. During this 2-year tenure, she chaired the Benicia Love Poetry Contest, which sounds awesome to me, organized many ekphrastic readings in the community, poetry responding to visual art, and published the anthology Light and Shadow, a collection of poems from the Benicia First Tuesday Poets Group. She helped start the Joel Fallon Poetry Scholarship Fund, which awards 2 poetry scholarships a year to Benicia high school students. She also started a first Sunday poetry series now called Poetry Inside Out, which still continues and is held at Bookshop Benicia. So without further ado, I think I'll check in with Kim here while you're reading real quick and we'll hear from you. Thank you so much for being with us. You're up.
So thank you, Caroline and Eileen, for organizing this event. And I want to give a shout out to Diane Frank, editor-in-chief of Blue Light Press. I don't know where she is, but thank you, Diane, for publishing my book. And I look forward to hearing everyone else's poetry tonight. My first poem is the first poem in my book. Can everyone hear me? Is everyone okay? Yes? All right. It's called The Night We Saw a Meteor. It was late August, the air warm enough for us to sit outside, to watch the soft darkness cover the trees. Still new with each other, we felt a silence settle between us, and were amazed to see a burning ball of light streak across the sky, a falling star gone before the wish. We wondered if it had crashed in a field west of us or disintegrated before touching the ground. We shared a moment of awe that stays with me even now. 7 years later, we are not who we were then. Our cells have been replaced and we have decayed and regenerated many times in our own small cosmos. Yet our bodies still shimmer with meteor dust billions of years old, our bones made from exploding stars. Thank you. This next poem is called Autumn Red. In trees all over town, dozens of scarlet handkerchiefs wave farewell. That blazing autumn red, how it flutters, then drifts down into beaks of migrating birds, nests of busy squirrels, a color even brighter than the hummingbird's flaming head, or the shade of lipstick that I wore that fine October day when we last met, the color of regret. This next poem I wrote in 2018 during the campfire, and unfortunately it's still relevant. I was with a group of retired teachers and we took a bus to Lodi to see the sandhill cranes fly in to the marshlands. Really beautiful sight. If you've never done it, I suggest you do it. And it was my second time doing it. And this time the fires were going on, so it was a really different experience. Returning to Lodi to see the sandhill cranes. 3 years later, I returned to the wetlands to witness the sandhill cranes fly in at dusk, to hear their comforting trills, to remember their language, how they once spoke to me. I watched the smoldering sun burn a round scar in the cigarette ash sky as it slowly drops into the smoky horizon. I am here to seek out the cranes, the way a woman dying of thirst searches for drops of water at the bottom of a cup. My face, the pallor of bone dust. I have choked on this lifeless air for many days as California burns, despair a noose tightening around my neck. The bus rumbles down the road and then I spot them, a few wandering down the rows of a farmer's cornfield. With long, graceful necks and legs, their gray bodies and wings relaxed, they amble and eat among autumn stalks, now cut to stubs. Saunter through patches of muddy water with mates and young ones. As the bus slows to a stop, two cranes suddenly face each other, flap their wings in a joyful dance, millions of years old. Delighted, my heart jumps too, until I realize I am a prisoner, peering at them through window glass, protected from the acrid air they breathe, unable to hear the soft trill of their voices. I covet their dangerous freedom, long to dance their dance, learn their low guttural cry. I need to hear them call each other home, call me home, but it is getting late and the angry sun has almost set. As the bus rumbles down the road, I taste brackish water in my parched mouth, then realize it is tears. Thank you. This next poem is an ekphrastic poem. It was written for an artist who used the spines of books in her paintings. And I thought it was appropriate for tonight since we're all reading from our books. And it's simply called Books. Someday people will ask what it felt like to hold a book, to run a finger down its spine, to inhale the woody odor of paper, to touch the words reverently as if they were blessings. The last of the old ones will remember them fondly and speak in whispers of what has been banned, burned, or buried alive. They will call books the ancient artifacts of truth. They will refer to them fondly as those tiny birds' feet, those thin gasps of knowledge we once tracked across a barren desert, the tracks now lost, covered in sand. They will still keep a few in their hidden bookshelves, the spines toppled over, the pages scattered, the ruins of abandoned cities and the scribble of a dying language gathering dust, the sound of wings written down after the last bird has disappeared. This next poem I wrote for Virginia Woolf, and I also wrote it for all the women who write. It's called A Room of One's Own for Virginia Woolf. 1, you did not choose madness to be your muse. All you wanted was a room facing seaward with stark white windows flung wide open, a quiet place to write your words that floated into your brain like tangled seagrass, the smell of salt carried on late afternoon ocean breezes, filling your nostrils with a giddy freedom. 2, did you lock the door behind you when you penned those extraordinary novels simmering in your awkward heart? Were you really the defiant, unconventional canary, trailing stubbornly day after day inside some claustrophobic space, perched high and solitary in the confines of a second-story room, gazing out a small rectangular window at perhaps the corner of a dingy brick building or a piece of windless sky? Did the midnight streetlights puncture your tender wings as you escaped through the small crack of an open window, your image mirrored in a pane of streaked glass? You, a wounded bird, now at last liberated, spread your blood-tinged wings towards the Atlantic, unwritten words, tiny soft feathers drifting down like crimson snow. 3, Virginia, that day in March when your frayed dreams finally unraveled, when you chose to fill your pockets with heavy stones and walk into the cold, dark river. Did you for a brief second dare to imagine yourself reborn? That even though the manuscript lay unfinished, the room no longer yours, the songbird's heart crushed, you would vow to return someday to sit with me and with other women who dream of water, who choose their words carefully, who write in other rooms. And this is my last poem. My last poem is called Inside Out Love. It takes courage to turn yourself inside out, to wear your gray muted side facing out and not feel embarrassed or apologize. No overblown pink roses blooming on your chest, no bold blue stripes running down your arms. Forget the dazzling, polychromatic self you want them to admire. Instead, give that brightness to your shy, aloof soul the one inside who sometimes feels colorless. Cover it with repeated images of magenta and turquoise birds, persimmon butterflies, and autumn paisley. It takes courage to show them your inside self, to let them discover your blurry side, the you that has no discernible pattern, your brand name faded beyond recognition, your inner self made of cloth that has been softened by tears. But note your seams are straight and true. Label yourself durable, lasting. Tell them with your loud, beating heart exposed that even this world, this frightened, desperate world we live in, can be turned inside out with love. Thank you.
Beautiful reading. Thank you so much. Yay, big round of applause from everyone. Yeah, and another practice I've seen people do is if there's something that particularly strikes you as powerful or beautiful, you can write it in the chat box and give the poet some love in the chat box too, you know, however you want to do it. But that was really beautiful. I appreciate hearing you. Thank you so much. So a little word from Kim. She says, through texting a friend, she says, thank you so much for including me. I was honored to be there. And I guess the power went out where she is and the internet is down. So we were lucky that we got to hear her and wish her well. Woo, so exciting. So much stuff going on. All right, next we are going to hear Joel Katz, who I have enjoyed hearing at Coastside Poetry over the years. Poet and translator Joel Katz lives in Palo Alto. His poems have appeared in various literary journals, including Sand Hill Review, Montserrat Review, West Wind Review, Disquieting Muses Quarterly, Spillway, Red Wheelbarrow. His chapbook, entitled Away, was published by Mayapple Press in 2008. Latest book of poems, Erase, Endure, was published by Dutch Poet Press in March 2020. Together with colleague Robert Perry, who's here, Joel has translated poems by the contemporary Dutch poets Ingmar, I'm gonna do this wrong too, Heitze, and Saskia Stehauer. That's fun to say those words. In the bilingual books, Iets Anders, Something Else, Dutch Poet Press, July 2017, as well as Stehauer's recent volume of eco poetry, super cool. Listen to this, Riekki Uitloop, Free Range, Dutch Poet Press, April 2019. Joel is a member of the Bay Area Literary Translators Working Group and the American Literary Translators Association. Always a work and a labor of love to translate from another language. So Joel, you're up.
So thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Eileen, for arranging this reading tonight. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yes, okay. So I'm going to be reading from my book, Erase, Endure, which is published by Dutch Poet Press in March of this year. I want to give a shout out to Robert Perry, who is the book designer and editor for the book. The book is in 3 sections. The first section is called Erase, and it considers the following notions: smallness, decrease, erasure. The middle section is called Endure, and it explores the notion of presence, sturdiness, and increase. And we'll get to the final section in a few minutes. So let me start by reading a sample poem from the Erase section. First thing. My friend had a mild case of glaucoma in both eyes. The clinic recently performed surgery on one of them. Today she told me how she goes outside first thing in the morning to enjoy the sky. She holds one eye shut, then the other, alternating. She likes the way the sky becomes yellow, blue, yellow, blue. And here's a poem from the Endure section. It's called Namesakes. So I wondered about my namesake and opened a Bible to the book of Joel, minor prophet, just 3 chapters, and found locusts.
Uh-oh. It froze up. Hoping it'll come
Plague
back.
of them, laying waste the vines, splintering circles of annoyance, solemnize a feast, a fast, proclaim an assembly.
Oh no. So what is happening? Oh,
Okay, I'm back. There was a little burp in the system.
the burp.
Yeah,
Okay.
little burpette. Let me start again. So namesakes. So I wondered about my namesake and opened the Bible to the book of Joel, minor prophet, just 3 chapters, and found locusts, a plague of them, laying waste the vines, splintering fig trees and stripping the bark, covering the moon with a rusty gauze. And nobody was standing around with hands on hips, shaking their heads in tight circles of annoyance, going, locusts, locusts, can you believe it? No, they were abject and repentant. And Joel declared, sound the trumpet, solemnize a fast, proclaim an assembly, and cry out to the Lord. I couldn't be that Joel. I'd rather be my other namesake, Yosef in Hebrew, Joseph, braggart to his brothers, dreamer, sold to a passing caravan and thrown into prison from which Pharaoh would pluck him to decode the nightmarish 7 fat cows and 7 lean cows. And Joseph goes on to sins from 7 years of famine. Now that's a namesake. Then there's me with a mortgage, a dented car, and a failed lawn. Someone who can mutter helpful facts like, the opposite faces of dice total to 7. When people argue, it sounds better in Italian. A tree stripped of its bark is still a tree and needs to turn for solace to the ancient Joel who said, so rend your heart and not your garments. So the 3rd section of the book is called Postscript. And there's an interplay between the 2 contrasting impulses of erasure and endurance. And it was written in response to my father's death 2 years ago at age 96. So I'd like to read a small number of poems from this final section. Disassembling. On a fairway overlooking Golden Gate Bridge. Some golfer overcome by all that red-orange beauty who forgot to replace the turf chunk we are now hiking past. though from July through October, the nearby foghorns groan more than 5 hours a day, bridge cloaked in mist. So maybe the golfer was distracted by something else, something mundane, perhaps the thought of his father recovering from hip surgery. Oh, my love, why have we never been lured by golf with its myriad clubs and irons, shoes and sweaters, choosing instead to hike these seaside hills, seduced by each other? Okay, this next poem is called First Father's Day Without. A friend asks, which is heavier, a pound of feathers or a pound of lead, or the mourner's black ribbon you wore and tore at the cemetery and which now hangs from a corkboard in your man cave? In morning's brightening light, each bird caw the syllable of some future poem, clouds as cryptic as his handwritten scrawls. A friend says, it's time to shuffle and redeal. A friend asks, if you start out from point A on a train traveling 80 miles an hour, how long will it take before your father appears in a dream? Next available dream, in a clearing, a circle of 10 foxes facing inward, waiting for someone to happen. For now, I'm folding the dough into a loaf I might fathom. The eggs. A limousine takes 7 of us back from the cemetery to the housing complex. My 11-year-old nephew Chance is thrilled to be riding in a limo as if he were going to a prom he will later experience. We gather in the commons room for the meal of consolation, as my father called it 13 years earlier when my mother died. There were trays of salads, pasta, pita and hummus, deli. Toward the end of the meal and conversation, my brother discovers the tray full of 30 hard-boiled eggs, traditional food after a funeral, closed and solid like a mouth shut and struck dumb. Wait, weren't we supposed to start the meal with the eggs? Did we do it all wrong? Do we need to restart the funeral? And here are the last 2 poems. Pockets. The rabbi is saying, before the deceased is buried, it is traditional for the body to undergo tahara, a solemn ritual washing, after which the body is clothed in a simple linen shroud without pockets. One leaves the way one entered, bearing nothing. And the final poem. New life. In a Jewish custom called shloshim, male mourners refrain from shaving during the 30 days after the death of a parent or spouse. The unkempt look signals the mourner's status, suggesting that he is focusing on the deceased rather than on his own appearance. On day 31, after my dad's funeral, I walk into a traditional barber shop in downtown Bozeman, Montana, run by 2 30-somethings in baseball caps. Kyle, brim forward, and Cody, brim backward and a hefty beard. After preliminary thinning with an electric shaver, Cody leans me back in the chair, places a warm towel over my face to soften the skin, then applies the heated lather. Next, an attentive straight razor shave, followed by a cool towel to reinstate skin moisture. The whole procedure takes 40 minutes. Cody then sits me up and turns the chair toward the mirror. Running my fingers along the lower face, I say, smooth as a baby's tush. Yup, says Kyle. It's like starting a new life. Thank you very much.
Oh, Joel, it was wonderful. Thank you so much. I always love hearing you read, but that was terrific. Very funny and also very moving and powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And people feel free to, let's give them I can clap and people can hear me, but everyone else can like go like this and say, yay, thanks for sharing. And, you know, make sure that if you can, order the poets' books and support their work. So, all right. Thanks, Joel. It was wonderful. Okay. Next, we're going to hear from Phyllis Klein. I'm looking forward to hearing Phyllis. I don't think I've heard your work. I know you from poetry circles, but Phyllis Klein works as a psychotherapist specializing in trauma and a certified poetry therapist who's lived in the Bay Area for over 30 years. Her work has appeared or will appear in Crosswinds Poetry Journal, Chiron Review, Portside, Sweet, a literary confection, I love that journal, Three Elements, Poetry Hotel, I-70, and the Minnesota Review, and others. She was a finalist in the Sweet Poetry Contest 2017. That's an accomplishment. The Carolyn Forche Humanitarian Poetry Contest 2019 and the Fisher Prize in 2019. And she was nominated for a pushcart in 2018. She sees writing as an artistic dialogue between author and readers, an intimate relationship building process that fosters healing on many levels. Writing about the news is her way of taking action to counter feelings of overwhelm and loss. And with that, Phyllis Klein.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Oh, thank you so much. And it's just been really amazing being here. I love the way, Carolyn, the way you've navigated all of the little crises, and I hope there won't be any more. So thank you so much for that, and everyone's readings too. So and I'm so sad that two of the poets are here because of evacuating. That's pretty close to home, I'd say. So I say a tiny little bit more about my book. It's in the form of a newspaper. As you heard, I've been writing about the news as a way of trying to stay out of a depressive, major depressive episode. And the book is divided into sections just like a newspaper. So it's like international news, features, obituary, arts and entertainment, lots of different sections. Before I start reading from the book, I wanted to read this poem I found by accident by Mary Oliver. And many of you might already know this poem. I haven't heard it before, and it's been helping me quite a bit over the last few days. I go down to the shore. I go down to the shore in the morning, and depending on the hour, the waves are rolling in or moving out. And I say, oh, I am miserable. What should I do? And the sea says in its lovely voice, excuse me, I have work to do. So, So the first one I'm going to read out of my book is called Paul Barton Plays Piano for Elephants. And this is a true story. And you can find many videos of Paul playing the piano for elephants on YouTube, and I highly recommend that you look for those. The elephants have been abused and they're in a rescue sanctuary, and his aim is to apologize to them for the abuse that they've suffered. Paul Barton plays piano for elephants. The piano, fountainhead to a congregation of sick, abused, retired elephants. A man's hands skim the keys. Animals stop, listen, flap ears. Reach trunks around to sniff aura of the instrument, aspect of the man. Elephants straggling about, free now, shielded. The piano sitting on the dirt in a park, surrounded. Picture it, man playing Bach to a creature large enough to kill him, stomp up his keyboard. The elephant stands transfixed. The man gives bananas at first to make a good impression. It helps them memorize his smell, connect him to the sounds. He walks with a group sometimes, the blind ones. Even if they knew where the piano once got its keys, what would they do? Crush it? This cruel, splendid coincidence, this moonlight sonata under the stars, these behemoths swaying. Thank you. So this next one is in the weather section. That one was in the arts and entertainment. We're all quite aware that we just lost somebody really important. And so I want to dedicate this poem to our losses. Moratorium. I long for lacrimose, for the beggar in a dog's eyes. I'm yearning for rain in deluge or drizzle, liquid as in laments. 1,000 purple umbrellas as they float over my city. Where does it hide, this sorrow? In a secret room above my shop? In a place a thief wouldn't find? Behind a wall, under a stone in the dirt? This numbness, memories too barbed to touch. This sadness, I can feel it brim in my exhausted eyes. Brim for my neighbor's mottled mind. She bangs on my door, conspiratorial, insists her sweet husband of 56 years plans to kill her. Brim for the children kidnapped over an address. Their only crime, a thirst for safety. Sobbing seems appropriate. Such a luxury, release the ache, water my dehydrated lawn. For the heat and its cousins, fire, flood, pollution. For bullets, for childhood, I could go on. The newspaper should be too wet to read. Hurricane Phyllis, broken up over the ocean, drifting away. The next one is in the travel section, and this is a story that was in the San Jose Mercury about a teenager who decided to run away from home. And I was thinking, as I was thinking about reading this, I was thinking, well, if I need to run away, I hope I can do a better job of figuring out how to do it. I wouldn't want to do it this way, but I might want to run away. So after landing, he awoke praying for a new home. Fury gave him courage to climb the airport fence. Not caring where he went, he crawled into the plane's wheel well. He didn't want to die, only to disappear. He felt the speed and lift off the ground, but was already detached from his body. His despair floated in the icy air like someone else's frozen tears. He fell asleep and his heart went into hibernation, a 15-year-old Arctic heart still beating at 35,000 feet. Maybe the anger saved him, like a blanket pulled close to his skinny body that kept some heat in. Maybe he still had just enough hope. And this last one is from a New York Times article about homelessness. Holding a place for human kindness to go. Strangers until the homeless man moves into the rancher's apartment, the one he decided to build on his land, generous with California oak woodlands with coastal sage scrubs. The rancher wonders, why doesn't everybody do this? He doesn't realize it is greatness to see potential when everyone else sees menace. Those immigrants invading like Mediterranean grasses, Spanish broom, yellow star thistle, weed them out, those seekers, or the downtrodden, down-thrusted, the ones bereft of four walls, invading the city, choking out the libraries, the beaches. And the homeless man who has a roof now doesn't realize his life is a poem when he says, living on the streets takes your dignity away. How his life was on the edge of felling, so much like a weed in a garden he could pluck out himself. And now he lives in a new home on a ranch near a person who takes a risk, digs a foundation, offers the horses, the owls, the steelheads, also endangered. Thank you.
Oh, Phyllis, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. How cool that the book is organized as a sort of around a newspaper. Like, it was so cool to hear those names of the different sections. It really makes me think of, you know, missing the newspaper, you know, like the newspaper. I don't get the newspaper. So my brother-in-law does. They sit down and read the newspaper, you know, every day still. I think a lot of people still do. So thank you. It was beautiful reading.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, next and last, but certainly not least, tonight we have July Westhale with the book to celebrate a book from Core Press, a wonderful and important press her book's called Via Negativa. She's an award-winning poet, translator, and essayist living in Oakland, the author of Via Negativa and Trailer Trash, winner of the 2016 Core Press Book Award. Congratulations. The Cavalcade, Finishing Line Press, Quantifiable Data, Alley Cat Books, very nice, and Occasionally Accurate Science, what a great title, from Nomadic Press, another great press. Her essays, poems, fiction, and translations are published in numerous journals, magazines, and anthologies. And I'm so glad you're with us, July. I look forward to hearing you. July Westhale.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me and inviting me to this wonderful event to celebrate local authors who also had books come out this year. It's been a challenge to be a pandemic author, but also I have to say that Zoom poetry readings have really been saving me over the last 6 months, so I'm grateful for this space. And I'm going to read from Via Negativa, which came out in June, and also this is my last reading on this tour. It's a really nice way to wrap this up. But before I do, I just wanted to read a poem by Ocean Vuong, who is a poet I owe a great debt to. I've been doing that on this tour. It's invoking a poet whose work means a lot to me. So this is a poem by Ocean Vuong called Essay on Craft. Because the butterfly's yellow wing, flickering in black mud, was a word stranded by its language. Because no one else was coming, and I ran out of reasons. So I gathered fistfuls of ash, dark as ink, hammered them into marrow, into a thick skull, enough to keep the gentle curse of dreams. Yes, I aimed for mercy, but came only close as building a cage around the heart, shutters over the eyes. Yes, I gave it hands, despite knowing that to stretch that clay slab into 5 blades of light, I would go too far. Because I too needed a place to hold me. So I dipped my fingers back into the fire, pried open the lower face until the wound widened into a throat, until every leaf shook silver with that god-awful scream, and I was done, and it was human. So I'm going to read from Via Negativa, which, if you don't know the concept of Via Negativa, it is the process of describing something by describing what it is not. So people often talk about it in relationship to God or divinity. And in this collection, I explore that, but I also explore it in relationship to the writing of poetry, and then also desire. So there are quite a lot of poems in the collection called Via Negativa, Ars Poetica, and then Love Poem. So the first one I'm going to read was also based off of a news story. So that was nice to segue from Phyllis. And it's called Via Negativa. 1. When the man from the headline thought about being a boy, he was a boy. He loved the war or the dogma of it, like the dappled light of sun across a reference book. To prove himself, he married a woman with history, children, 2 boys who in turn loved war stories, but before he knew them. Once upon a time, they were bantam children with bendable bodies and brains like open atlases. 2. His wife left no note, just her boys, just a poem. Something, 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 seasons shifting, something, something. He had read so much of her poetry. He knew when burning animals were real and when they weren't. 3. He made a rue the day he killed them, fastening the flower so it whispered as he whisked. Sun sliced the blinds like smiling clementines, and the skin of onions grinned at the ceiling fan which said, don't, 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 until he made the older boy flip the switch. He lined them up before the floral wallpaper, the grand jury of botany doing its thing, and like love, the gun bloomed 1, 2, 3. sheer gravy. With thanks to Frank O'Hara. Adjust the bunny ears so the television tells a tale with a female lead. The weather girl, she shimmies, she shakes, she's entered with bossa nova. She's young and thin and blank and blankly. Shoots tequila with a man in Jimmy Buffett florals. She's got that out-of-stock orange in Mac's Lady Danger. She is mouthing off. Ordinarily, I wouldn't. And the world finishes her sentence. I can't blame the weather girl the weather, and instead suppose that every chance she gets, she beckons. Ordinarily, I wouldn't, but since it's just us girls. The sportscaster is always belligerent, drunk on stats. The news is always drunk on women, always relieved at men, those tall drinks of water. We cannot report sans reproach. Current climate, the political landscape, masculinity of flyover state, and great God, isn't it good we're making America, America? And to that end, I'll end with one poem called American Literature. And there's an epigraph from John Keats, which is, the silver lamp, the ravishment, the thunder, the wonder, the darkness, the loneliness. There's a billboard with Route 66's version of June Cleaver holding a pie underneath block letters, homemade pies, which is how dry towns get their jollies, I guess. We buy coffee in cups so thin the Joe becomes us and we never regain our human shapes. And I say to you, I wonder where they keep the half bull man. And you shotgun back, I've spent my life asking that, like the sharpshooter you are. Who wouldn't want to be the son of a bull and a damned woman? We're all sons of bull. And damn, you've gone west to find everything, or me, and look at girls the way I look at girls who are bad for me. Like a desert through slatternly windows. This is America. The big prick statues, statuary in their old growth knowing. In the end, spoiler alert, we're both after the wrong bandit. The bank gets robbed. The two women who should be lovers but aren't arc their caddy like a rainbow into the lavish vaginal canal at the last moment. The whale gets away. Faulkner's pretend mother doesn't get the burial she deserves. We have to choose between Liz Taylor in a kerchief or James Dean with his shirt stuttered open, and we can't. That's the roadside attraction we wanted. Sideshows of our Go West monsters, replete with Slim Jims, radio evangelism, acid reflux coffee cup in a big gulp, and a man off the interstate with a sun punch sign that says, anywhere. Thank you.
Woo! Oh, that was great. Oh, thank you. Thank you, July, for being here for your last, and congratulations on the book and the tour, and thanks for sharing the last stop on your tour with us. It was really fantastic and very, very powerful. I love the political, energy. So it was really, really good. And oh yeah, let's do a round of applause for July. Phyllis, Joel, let me see my list. Ron, Johanna, and Kim, and Tanu. But let's just stop and just do a big round of applause and do the jazz hands and thank everybody so much. This was really fantastic. I'm grateful that I was able to host this wonderful event.